time for VC Fluency session number 9. If you recall, last time we went over investor desired ownership, pre and post money review, and simple price per share calculation. This price per share calculation only gets more complex here, so it's a good thing you guys did a quick review. So 3 things for today. 1 is cap table setup, 2 is cap table math, and 3 is cap table build out. Let's begin. So in terms of organizing for that cap table, there are things that are needed to be here and things that can maybe be here. The most important things are number of shares, right, by equity holder and equity round, so Series A versus Series B and shares for each. You need to understand the outstanding versus diluted ownership, which also ties into the option pool. So we'll go over this more in session number 10, but basically outstanding are shares that are currently owned by people within or outside the company, versus fully diluted is if everyone bought all their options or basically equity that they have access to, right? So if you're an employee, you have options, the fully diluted will count each employee having purchased all their options, versus the outstanding only covers options already purchased plus other equity within the company that is already owned. So reviewing price per share, it's a simple calculation, right? Drill this into your head. Invest amount equals price per share times number of shares, or rearrange it. Number of shares equals amount invested divided by price per share, or you can also do price per share equals invested amount divided by number per shares, right? And there's really 3 steps to calculating this cap table. The most important one, I'd argue, is the first one, which is like calculate this new price per share. Now that we're doing a cap table, there's already existent data on prior rounds, so we need to use that as a reference point. And then the remaining 2 steps are pretty easy. It's calculate the remaining shares allocation for everyone in the company, and then literally fill out the cap table. So here for this scenario, we're going to go back to the upstream example. So we're going to keep the Series A numbers. So it's a 15 million post-money Series A, and the price per share is 0.01. Remember, we picked that because it was easy. So now we're thinking about this new round. So it's a Series B. We're going to say it's valued at 700 million. And then we're also going to say that us, Violet Sky VC, we've invested 140 million in the company. We took the entire round, and 140 million divided by 700 equals 20% of the company. So here's what we know. We know the 1.5 billion shares at 0.01 price per share, new round. What we're calculating is a new price per share, number of shares, and new percent allocation. So there's really 2 ways of doing this. There's a math academic method, and there's Excel and venture method. You should be comfortable with both and be able to toggle on and off from both. But they are separate, so we can go over them. Math academic method is just literally like a plug and chug. So basically you're looking for the new shares issued, right? And that's the existing shares divided by 1 minus the target percentage minus the existing shares. Why does this work, right? If you think about existing shares divided by 1 minus target percentage, here it's going to be 0.2, right? So the existing shares divided by 0.8. Here you're basically calculating the number of shares equal to that 20% of the company, right? And you just subtract the existing shares, because if you don't subtract the existing shares, you would then have like the 100 plus the 20%. And then again, the price per share calculation, amount invested by number of shares. So let's do this here. We have 1.5 billion, right? Number of shares, 20% target ownership. Minus 1.5 billion, we have 0.37 billion or 375 million shares. And then we have 140 million, 0.3 divided by the 0.375 billion. We have the 0.0333 repeating price per share. We're basically done here. And all good. The Excel method allows you to do more at once, also allows you to do a lot of things in Excel. So the logic to this is straightforward but a little confusing. What you need to think about is what is the price per share that sets the prior investor book value to the pre-money value. And this is because during a new round of financing, when the company's valued more, the prior shareholders, their equity amount on paper at least is now worth more since the company is worth more, right? So we know that the post-money is $700 million, right? With the $140 million investment. So we know the pre-money here is $560 million. So what is the price per share that sets the prior investor's book value to pre-money value, right? So we do know the shares for all prior investors, right? That's the cap table here. And then it's critical to have these formulas set up. It makes this a lot easier. So we put it on the cap table template. We know the pre-money is $560 million. We basically just change this 0.01 until we get the prior investor shares worth $560 million. There's a few ways of doing this, right? You can literally just guess and check. You can use Go, Seek on Excel. You can use the formula we covered before, right? Manipulating the price per share formula is useful here. So we get a price per share of this 0.37333, agreeing with what we calculated before. So easy enough, right? We know the 0.337. We know the investor invested $140 million. We can then use this formula as we've done before. The number of shares equals the amount invested, divide by the price per share, and we get the same 375 million number. And then we just fill it out, right? Just fill out all the remaining amounts in the cap table. It is likely there's more than one investor, right? So this 140 million might be a few investors, and that you can easily do that using proportions depending on how much money they put in. Straightforward enough. And also just going through some of the other things you include in the cap table. So in addition to like the shares, percent outstanding, percent fully diluted, you could include the capital. That's not typical. It's on this cap table. It's nice to have. The price per share at each round, this tends to be sensitive because like you can calculate it using the numbers you have, but it can be a little disconcerting if you see that a prior investor bought shares of the company for a much lower value. In this example, you can see how this investor, even though he threw in only $10,000, they got a much more favorable price for the Series A. And this is actually because it was self-incubated. So that's, the price per share probably isn't there because they're trying to hide something. You can put the conversions to each round. There is a possibility for things to happen nonlinear. If there's like warrants, additional terms that give investors more shares at a prior round, safe can invest at a discount, like you can include that logic in there or not. Outstanding options and warrants. Again, options do need to be there and captured in some shape or form, but you have the ability to like expand that and make it very clear how many options are in the company. And you can do that like at like the Series A versus Series B level, instead of perhaps just doing a percent outstanding, percent fully diluted, and not capturing the nuance of the options within each round of investing. And you can also add any sort of additional shareholder terms, right? Like debt, preferred versus non-preferred stock, voting rights, the timing of the investment. All these things aren't mandatory. And oftentimes you'll see that a founder has like a investor version, which they'll send out during early diligence. And they might have like a full version, which has all of these additional nuance, and perhaps it's saved to the final rounds of diligence. So that's basically it for the cap table build out. Next time we'll go over option pools, which really ties in this discussion, and looking forward to it. Have a good one. Bye.